Well, with me now, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody and Nathan Gonzales, editor and publisher of Inside Elections. He's also a Faith Nation contributor. Gentlemen, it's great to start the week with you after Labor Day. David, I'd like to start with you. I know that you were on the 700 Club earlier this morning. You talked about how you didn't see Congress coming up with a compromise to fund the government. You think it will go to a shutdown. So my question for you is, if that ends up happening, who gets the blame, and is there anyone who can potentially benefit from a shutdown politically?
Well, Democrats are going to say Republicans will get the blame, or Republicans will say Democrats will get the blame. I think in this, normally, by the way, historically, as Nathan will nod along and agree on this, Republicans typically get the blame. Now, having said that, this time around, all Republicans want pretty much is a clean, what they call a clean CR, just a clean continuing resolution. They just want to continue the status quo, kind of follow what the current budgetary guidelines are now. So it's going to be really on Democrats, who are either going to have to say, no, we're not going to just continue the status quo, or basically say, hey, it's time to do something different. The problem is that they're kind of in a pickle. They have a base that wants a fight. And so my sense is that this could possibly fall on Democrats, but it's too hard to really determine at this point.
Nathan, the video was over your screen, so we couldn't see if you were nodding your head along or not. But I do want to ask, so Congress back in session after the Labor Day weekend, after their August recess. They've got 4 weeks to fund the government or face the shutdown. There's also the Epstein discharge petition. Talk about what you see as some of the top priorities as they round out this session of Congress.
Well, I think Congress has struggled to do more than one thing at a time, and they probably need to do 3 or 4 things at a time. We've talked about the budget and funding the government. We've talked about some of the investigations, the Epstein situation, as well as investigating the Biden administration and what officials did or did not know. I think they're also looking into the DC crime statistics. There's a lot. They also want to confirm more of President Trump's judges or appointees. So there's a lot that they're trying to do at one time, and they really haven't been able to do that. And with the funding, there's also this fundamental level of distrust that Democrats, if they vote for a spending bill, are not convinced that the administration will follow through and spend the money that they have allocated. And so that is another underlying issue here.
David, I want to ask you about longtime New York Democrat Jerrold Nadler. He announced today that he will not seek re-election after 32 years serving in the House of Representatives. And then Iowa Republican Joni Ernst also confirmed she's not running next year. How do you read their decisions, and how much do you think it'll affect the balance of power in next year's midterm elections?
Well, I mean, I don't read too much into it. I mean, I think Nathan would probably have a better handle on this. But, I mean, Jerry Nadler's been around for a while. He's had some health issues, and let's just be clear. There's no balance of power issue at Nadler. He's from the Upper West Side of New York. This just in, pretty darn liberal, and will stay pretty darn liberal. Joni Ernst, a little bit different in the sense that, she's from Iowa, used to be a swing state, not so much a swing state anymore, solidly Republican, so most likely in capable hands out in Iowa in terms of the Republicans keeping that seat. So I'm not quite sure the balance of power means anything. Joni Ernst, not necessarily full-on MAGA for sure, and that might have had some influence, but hard to tell at this point.
Nathan, I'd love for you to weigh in.
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris got 81% of the vote in Jerry Nadler's district, so I think that another Democrat's going to win that. But Ernst, it is a Republican state, but it's also the type of state that Democrats need to win in order to win a majority in the Senate. So that shows how difficult of a path it is for Democrats, because they're going to have to win in Iowa, Texas, or Ohio, maybe 2 of those 3 states to get to 51.
Nathan, I'm moving topics here a little bit, but I want you to weigh in because you alluded to this earlier. So a federal judge ruled that the use of troops in Los Angeles is unconstitutional and cited the president's statements about federalizing more guard units in other states, saying it essentially creates a national police force with the president as its chief. So, from your perspective, listening and reading and monitoring what Congress says, how will congressional Republicans weigh all of this as they contemplate maybe extending the 30 days the president has to federalize troops in the nation's capital?
It's pretty clear congressional Republicans are going to be behind President Trump in almost everything he wants to do. Where it gets complicated is that federalizing or mobilizing the D.C. National Guard in the District of Columbia is different, because D.C. is not a state, than mobilizing the National Guard in states and cities that are in actual states. And just a few minutes ago, the president was asked about Chicago, and he said, we're going in. He didn't list exactly a timeline or a plan, but I think that it's clear that that is the path, and that is a different legal argument, but politically, Republicans are they believe President Trump's doing the right thing, and they're going to want to support him.
David, to that, as Nathan was just saying about Chicago, the president says he's going to send troops into Chicago and possibly Baltimore. The New York Times has been highlighting, though, how several states that are sending in the Guard to help in D.C. have cities where the crime rate is higher than the nation's capital. How much of this is a winning issue with the voters? Is this why President Trump is pushing forward with this?
You hit the button, or you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, that's exactly right, John. I mean, the Republicans, President Trump, this administration thinks this is a politically winning issue, to be on the side of safety, to be on the side of fighting crime, kind of like immigration was back in the campaign days of 2024. That's what they're banking on. Now, from a legal perspective, there's a whole lots of different legal issues here. But one thing to understand here is that if President Trump goes the Insurrection Act route, in other words, saying that we need to bring in the National Guard from a federal perspective in Chicago and other cities because we need to, in essence, quell an insurrection, which is, in essence, crime, well, that takes it to a whole nother level, and that's what we're watching from a constitutional perspective.
Gentlemen, I wish we had way more time because I have way more questions, but we'll have to end it there. Nathan Gonzalez with Inside Elections and CBN's David Brody. Always appreciate your time and insights, gents.